seat. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, get out your outlines, and we'll jump into this. We're in a series that we're calling Family Matters, and that can mean both of those things that hopefully you're thinking about. Family does matter, and that's what we're really trying to make the case for. But then there are family matters that we've got to deal with in order for it to matter the most. I was telling the ones I work most closely with in our debrief on Tuesday that I gave these messages back in 2016. Obviously, I didn't just pull them out and do it like a parrot. I was reviewing them and thinking them through, and just realized while I was given that message last week that the culture around us has changed so much in 9 years that maybe some of what I said feels a little bit radical, which just goes back to the whole thing about, you remember Abraham Lincoln and what he posted on his website and all that stuff. Yep, there's about 17 of you listening to me. That's good, because Abe doesn't have a website yet. But then there's AI, so could be. Nice. Now, what I was talking to you about then is that sometimes the ancient ways doesn't make them out of fashion. Well, it does make them out of fashion, but it doesn't make them obsolete. Is that sometimes you got to go back to what the truth is. You got to dig down to what the foundation is. You got to go back to what is true. No matter what you're being told, no matter what you have thought or thought up on your own. And so we're going to pick up from where that left off. I hope that you've already picked up on the fact that whenever we jumped into this today, it's the same thing. It's really about Jesus. That's it. And I don't mean just complete and utter adoration, which singing 1,000 Hallelujahs just, man, I love that song. And wish I had 1,000 tongues to sing my great Redeemer's praise. That's what I would do. But I want you to understand, we are Jesus followers. We believe that he lived a flawless life, died a blameless death, and he rose victorious. And it is in those things that we put our trust that he is who he says he is, and he will do what he said he will do. Now, he set in motion some things that have to do with our family life, and we want to unpack that. Speaking of family, hey, church family, have I told you recently that I love you? Because I really, really do. And I'm so grateful for all that you do for me and for my family. But I also love that you're doing your best, I think, to be able to live for Jesus, not only when we're here for an hour and a half, a couple hours on a Sunday, but Fridays, all the days that end in Y. Let's not play church. Let's actually be Christ followers in everything that we do. I have to draw attention, though, to one particular fellow. He's going to hate me for doing this, but my friend Doug, who's at the back, he's part of the operations team, but I don't know if y'all knew it. We got water and we got heat this past week, and that means that the best thing that grows in southwest Colorado, weeds, sprung up around our building, and he did a great job and made the place look good. And I think every once in a while we all ought to get a round of applause. So would you applaud him? Not easy work, but he cares about what goes on around Rock Springs, as so many of you do. I'm just singling him out because, man, it looks so good. Started it last week. Our Director of Family Ministries, Mark Meyer, and his wife Ashley kicked off our middle school program that happens concurrently with our service. We're calling it Pacers. If you are in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, about to go into 6th, 7th, 8th, you are free to dismiss yourself, go over there and join them. They are starting something really radical. And then come near the end of this month, we're going to kick off the high schoolers thing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying our best with RSK, Pacers, recap. We are wanting to help our students know Jesus and how to continue to know him and have a relationship with him so that whenever they graduate from high school, they do not graduate from their faith. And that's what we're intent on doing. Please pray for it. Please put yourself in a position to where you can help it. Church, all of our families are our family. So let's do what we can. Y'all picking up when I'm laying down? Okay. I hope that you spent some time thinking about what we talked about last week, and that is there is this tension between the real And Lord knows we've got a whole bunch of real in our families. Could I get an amen or an oh no or something? Yeah, okay. And then there's the ideal, because if you're following Jesus, and we're talking about who he is and what he's done and what he's capable of, he sets out this ideal. And there's a tension that exists in our lives whenever we say, Jesus, I want to do what you want me to do. And he tells you this ideal, and then you turn back around and you see my life and my family are very, very real. You can't get away from it, honestly, if you give your attention to Jesus. You can't get away from this. It's not, I mean, you can try and medicate it, you can try and make it go away. But the fact is that tension between what we know and want and what is actually happening, that's a part of who we are. It's how we are made. And so last week, and this is just a quick review, last Sunday I pointed out that you see that family that they took that picture of, and then they slapped that into that new frame that you buy at Walmart, and they're like, like they're perfect, and everybody's got the creases in the right place. And then you take it home and you open up, the shrink wrap, and then you put a picture of a very real family. And like I said, wouldn't it be great if everyone would actually look at the camera at the same time? I mean, that's how the thing is. But to make it cut a little closer to the bone, what I'm talking about is whenever we talk about our real family, you may be going through a real divorce. And it's painful, way more painful than you thought it would be. You were hoping it would be quick and easy and it would just make everything so much better. That's real. You say, I have a real family, real kids. But they are a prodigal son or a prodigal daughter. Maybe your reality is, I want a family. We want a family, and we keep trying to have kids, but we don't have any yet. That's real. Real is when you come to me and say, I am finding that Jesus is making a difference in my life, and I love our church family because they make me feel warm and welcome, and that life does have some hope. And I just wish with all my heart that my husband would come with me, or my wife would come with me. Heck, I've even tried to get them to get on the online campus, and they will not do it. That's real. You try and make things better because Lord knows the chaos that exists in most of our families is like, could we knock down some of the chaos and get some order to this thing, but yet the habits and the hang-ups still hang on. That's real. We left off with this idea, and that is Jesus, and I just gave you one example, but it's everywhere in the New Testament, particularly, obviously, in the Gospels. But Jesus had the audacity to lean into that tension. He did not look at people like you and me and say, oh, poor you. Let me take that tension off of you. That's why when people say, well, I think Christianity should be just all sunshine and roses, it's like, I don't know which Jesus you're following, because that's not what he did. He leaned into the tension, because you and I can say, yeah, that's real, and Pastor David, you're pretty accurate on that. I can feel the tension between the real and ideal, but then you start reading the red letters in the Gospels, and Jesus comes along, and instead of it lessening the tension, he elevates it. He makes it worse, stronger. He raised the standards. You do realize he raised the standards on forgiveness. I don't need to see a show of hands, but it's like there are a certain group of people in our lives that are easy to forgive. Could I? And then there's others that are on sort of like your blacklist. And yet Jesus says it's the people on your blacklist that you ought to be forgiving 70 times 7. It's like, You do realize that he elevated the tension between the real and the ideal of purity in our life. He did it with commitment. You think that you're committed, and Jesus says, that's good effort. And then he also says things about, this is what sacrifice actually looks like, and lays down his life for not only his friends, but his enemies. Wow. And he says, looking you straight in the eye. I'm telling you the truth. It's an ancient truth, but the actual ancient truth is that in almost every area of life, I am going to stretch you. I'm going to lean into the tension because that is the ideal. Now, I would also say, having walked with Jesus, talked with Jesus in my Christ following for some 50 years or so, and then reading what he has to say, I get the sense he's not trying to make us feel bad. There's no joy or pleasure to be gained in that. He's not like, because that's the way a lot of you think that God is. It's like he knows the bad things that you've done. He's just looking for an opportunity to just bop you on the head and make sure that you know that he's large and in charge. It's not the kind of God he is. He's not mad at you anymore. All you have to do is look at the cross. Jesus isn't trying to make you feel bad. He's trying to give you something that you can't get any other way. Which, a lot of people say, that seems narrow-minded that Jesus says he's the only way to God. If you were drowning in a sea, are you going to debate what kind of life-saving device that they throw you? Why didn't you include more other options? No, whenever you need the answer and someone gives you the answer, that's not narrow-minded, that's grace. We discovered this was in the notes last week, and that is Jesus taught and he pointed toward an ideal, but at the same time he refused to condemn those who fell short of that ideal. You go, which is it? And he says, it's both. So today, since he leaned more into that tension, I think we ought to too. So I hope you're ready because I'm going to get all up in our grills, mine and yours, together. And let's call the real what it is. But don't you let go of the other side of the equation, and that is God's grace is sufficient for you. His love for you is so wide, so tall, so deep, so long, you cannot outrun it. But you cannot run from the fact that you and I are all kinds of real. Could I get an amen? Yeah. Okay. If you let go of either of those sides of the equation, you will not be able to taste the secret sauce. Because if you let go of either side of that, you will not experience what God actually created you for. It won't be easy. What I'm about to tell you and trying to live it out this week, it's not going to be easy to hold on to both of these because I'm telling you, it's always true in every culture, but it is especially true in our culture right now. Culture tries to persuade persuade us to deal with it a different way. And one of the things I said last week, the question that we have to ask is, are we going to redefine our family relationships so that we don't feel bad about the situation or make ourselves comfortable? Or will we make a choice to lean in the direction of Jesus and let him refine our families instead of us redefining what family is? Because culture wants you to get rid of it. We live in one of the most amazing cultures that has ever lived. We have more at our disposal than any culture that has ever lived. We have more information, we have more resources, we have more excuses than any culture that has ever lived. I've told you this before, I do a couple of news consolidation apps, and you can just flip through these titles of stuff, and it's things I subscribe. It says, have you got marriage problems? Well, the headline goes on to say, essentially, ditch that one and get a new one. Which means it sounds like, so it's like a car. Because if you're driving one that's more than 5 years old, you need a new one. Which, side note, I got so many side notes today. Y'all bear with me. Do you all realize that most of us who are married spend more money and more time on maintenance of our vehicles than we do in building into our marriages? I would say to you, if you're married, no matter how long you've been married, buy a good Christian marriage book. Go to a marriage retreat. Make a reservation with a Christian counselor and do a checkup. You do it for your car and you'll go through hundreds of cars. But I'm telling you, you want to finish with the one that you're with. Okay, got to go on. Sorry, that was just a side note, side note. Culture tells you feel bad about your situation because someone was mean to you or they didn't do what you wanted them to do. That's okay. Just get really, really loud on the socials to get as much sympathy as you possibly can. because that's going to solve the problem. Socials. We see everybody's highlight reel. And yet we all live, as the kids say, BTS, behind the scenes. We're being duped. Oh, you lost the game. That's okay. Everybody's going to get a trophy. And I've talked to enough kids who've been in that kind of situation. They go, that trophy does not mean anything to me because everybody got one. Yeah, okay. What they're basically saying, what culture basically says is don't sweat it. It's normal. It's real. Nobody needs to feel bad. So, and yet, like I said, the tension I feel is yet, if you have kids, no one really hopes that their kids grow up and gets a divorce. You want what is best for your family. You want what is best for your kids, even if you haven't been able to experience the best. All of us, I've never met a person who doesn't gravitate toward what we would call fairy tales or myths, and I'm not putting them down, I'm elevating them. The reason we like these kinds of stories, it's the reason why these kinds of movies do well, is because we aspire to the ideal. A man and a woman falling in love and staying in love for the whole round. There's something in us that loves a story where you see adult children who've left home, but they still want to come back home. Are y'all feeling me? Okay. We love the stories that tell us that there can be families that are family-centered. Regardless of what culture says, regardless of what our experience tells us, that tension that you feel, that I hope I've described in a meaningful way, it's not going to go away. So there's not only this tension. I wasn't satisfied with having that tension from last week to carry with us. Let's give us another tension. You want to? Because let's just all be tense. That'll make this one will go real well. There's not only a tension between what real and ideal, there's a tension between what culture says and what Jesus calls us to do. Now, some of you are going to go, not enough eye rolls for what I'm about to tell you, because you're going like, what, dude, you're 64 years old and you're just now getting around to this? I have known about the book, Call of the Wild, most of my life. Heard people talk about it. As much of a reader as I am, I have never picked up the book and read it. But I could have told you the story because so many people have told me the story. Also went looking because, all-knowing Wikipedia says there's been like 7 attempts to remake the book into a movie. All the way back, because the book was written back in 1910 or something like that. How many of you ever read Call of the Wild? How many of you seen the movie? I watched it yesterday. It's wonderful. As you may or may not know, written in the early 1900s, it's a story about a dog, so it can't be all bad. And the dog's name is Buck. Buck is a St. Bernard Collie mix. He's about 150 pounds. And he is living the high life. This takes place, the story takes place in the 1890s during the Yukon Gold Rush. You can go and read about it yourself. But he's living down in, somewhere in California. And as the kids would say, Buck has a bougie lifestyle, okay? He doesn't have to worry for anything. He's got plenty to eat. He is babied. He is taken care of. Through a series of events, he gets sold and made into a sled dog for someone in the Yukon. Okay, you're starting to get the tension that he's going through. The story and the movie as it is told, he has to learn he's never seen snow. He has to not only encounter snow, has to learn to run in snow. His pads, get raw. He has to go hungry. He experiences an extreme amount of pain. He is uncomfortable. And he goes through these things, and he goes through these things, and he goes through all of that. And through those experiences, he learns to relate to other dogs in ways that he never dreamed. And he begins to change. Yes, he's got calluses, and yes, he's got more muscles, and he drops about, 15, 20 pounds. But that's not the key to the story. The key to the story is that something inside of him wakes up. And if you haven't figured out the title of the book, it's the Call of the Wild. He is no longer deceived by comfort. He is no longer lulled to sleep by safety. He actually learns how to give sacrificially. He learns how to love. He learns how to lead. And he also finds somebody to love. Found somebody to love. I tell you that, and it's worth your watch. What if Buck's story is actually a parable of us? What if culture's been lying to us and been doing a really good job? That we should avoid what's difficult and chase comfort. What if the way we were raised, and I have no idea, I can tell you, I've told you my testimony of my family situations, but what if the way you were raised is actually not what you were built for? What if God had another design? And this is what I would say about the story as I watched it yesterday, and what I would say about us, and I hope you're paying attention. Comfort zones don't keep your life safe. Comfort zones keep your life small. And when I say that we want to be brighter light and saltier salt, y'all, the point is not to go out and rub it in anyone's face, but to live a life of sacrifice and love and Christ-likeness in such a way that it is winsome to bring people in, because, just because we're sitting in this room and you're listening to an oblong dud talk about it doesn't mean the only people who are wrestling with it are here. There's a lot of people who are wrestling with this very thing right now. Think about that. Here's the challenge. In our overview last week, we talked about there were a lot of messed up families in the Old Testament. So if you feel badly about the dysfunction of your family, just go read the Old Testament. Then we also know that in the New Testament, we don't really have a lot of stories. We have directives. We have instruction. We have, this is what you need to do based on the character as well as the teaching of Jesus Christ. We have these directives in summary. They're on your outline. We're going to go through them very quickly on the screen. Number 1, I said, husbands. This is from the New Testament. Husbands, love your wives and be considerate. Wives, submit to your husbands. Children, obey your parents. Fathers, don't exasperate your children. That's it. Let's rise for the benediction. That's it. That's the directives we have. Not a lot of stories. It's just that's what we're told to do. It's ancient. Does that make it obsolete? No. That's the target. But there's the tension. Even reading through the list, because of the way our culture has taught us to think, we think that there's something. Because you're thinking, I can't really read your mind, but I'm just saying, I've been around this block a time or two. You're thinking, okay, love my wife perfectly? Yeah, sure, that's going to happen. Some of you are going, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Have you met my husband? Some of you who are teenagers, you're going, my parents have had a new thought in like 40 years. And some of you dads are going, don't exasperate my kids. My kids exasperate me every single day. Amen. See, I knew I could get okay. So what do? Do you punt on those directives just because they don't feel comfortable? Do you forget them, ignore them, pretend that they don't exist? Just excuse 2,000 years of history? Do you normalize something else because you're lacking in that area? By the way, if you're not a Jesus follower yet, you got options. You can listen to this and you can apply it and it will work because it's eternal truth. Not because I said it, it just is. If you're a Jesus follower, you don't have options. I'm about to put you on the spot and you'll thank me later. Because Jesus, remember, he's the one who lived flawlessly, died sacrificially, rose victoriously. He says to you, I truly understand your real and my ideal, but my instruction is live with me like this in the tension. Okay, now just for fun, because I need your response on this one. I already know what the answer is. Which of those 4 instructions stands out more than any of the other 4? Yeah. Go ahead and say it out loud. It's fine. Wives, submit to your husbands. That's the one that everybody goes, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now, you need to stick with me and do not go to sleep. If you do, you need to go to the archives and listen to this message again at another time. Because this verse that it is based on and the instruction that I have laid out for you has been used and abused and misquoted, and it's been used like a club. It's like take the Bible and beat other people over the heads with it. That's what we want to do with it. I get it. It's also, especially in our culture, I even saw an article this week, that people who aren't associated with church take that and they twist it and they use it to diss on the Bible and on Christianity because they do not understand what it's actually saying. And yet at the same time, y'all, it's a very, very important teaching. It's a far-reaching teaching, not because of the women. Let me tell you why. The reason being is that the context in which this was given, remember, women did not, in that culture, have any say. They had this much more value than cattle. Okay? Jesus elevated the role of women. He asked them to participate in his ministry. They financed a lot of what went on. I'm just telling you that we could go into that for all kinds of time. Paul takes what Jesus says and he teaches it, and he says the teaching and the principle that I'm giving to you in the paragraph, in the context of what he's teaching, is a principle that applies to every single follower of Jesus Christ. Every single one. And this is one sentence. That whole thing of wives submit to your husband. One sentence, one verse has a very specific application. And that sentence has application to women. Okay? Stick with me. Do not jump ahead. This is what Paul wrote. We've translated it into English from Greek, but in Ephesians 5:22, he says, in the midst of teaching about this idea, he says, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. Okay, observe. He is speaking to women as though they are equal citizens in the family of God. That's a huge thing right there. But I know a lot of men throughout my life who've come to me when he and she were having a lot of difficulty seeing eye to eye. So there's no better way to solve that problem than to go talk to the preacher. Because that guy comes up to me and says, preacher, doesn't it say in Ephesians 5:22 that wives are to submit to their husbands? I'm just saying, his motives are he wants to win the argument. My response to men who come at me that way, come at me, bruh, I would simply say, sir, what is the first word in the sentence that Paul gave us? And the first word is wives. And I would say, that one's for her. And I tell him, did you know that there's another one right next to it that's to you? And they go together. Because that one's for wives. You ain't a wife. your husband, and there's some for you too. And besides that, I would also say the crucial word that Paul is trying to do all the threads, you can read it for yourself. The crucial word is submit. We don't like the word submit. I don't care if you're a guy or girl. Most of us just don't like that word. And remember, this is coming from Jesus because Jesus said these kinds of things. He said there's this new worldview that I'm bringing with me, and that is love. And I'm not just talking about all warm, fuzzy feelings. It's the kind of, he said, every rule that you know that's of any consequence, all of those rules are summed up in trying to lead us to love. Jesus also says, I don't talk about stuff that I don't display. I don't display stuff that I don't talk about. He said, I'm about to show you what love looks like by hanging on a cross. He displayed love like it had never been displayed before. And he says, what I want you to do is you guys need to know this, and then you guys need to go and do as I have done for you. And without even using the word, you do realize that that's what happened, is that the Son of God came down into the middle of our mess and submitted to us. Because I told you it's a word, hupotasso. It means to get your shoulder up underneath something and lift it up. The Son of God, who lived flawlessly, died sacrificially, and rose victoriously, submitted his life for us. Paul, talking about him, but you can also read one of Jesus' closest friends. His name was Peter. They start applying this teaching to the churches, to the groups of men and women who they have called together and say, let's believe Jesus, let's follow him, let's make our lives start to look like his. They said, but how does this look? We've never experienced this before. It's never existed in human culture before. How do we make this work? How do we apply it in our families like yours and like mine that are nothing ideal, but they are definitely very real? I don't mean to just keep harping on it. This had never happened before in human history. You can do your homework. Go find it. It originated with Jesus and the birth of the church, which today is the church's birthday. You know that? Today is Pentecost. Now, love had been talked about in human history all throughout, but the love ethic, in terms of everything, is now a grid through which it passes, a filter through which it passes. It was completely new. In other words, what Jesus taught us and we're supposed to live out is, what does love require of me? Prior to Jesus bringing this onto the scene and us unpacking it, it was always might makes right. I am large and in charge. You can take your golden rule, but I'm here to tell you, the one who has the gold has the rules. I love human history, studying it, because there's so much to be learned. You do realize you can go way back. If you were large and in charge, in Egypt, you ruled the world until you didn't. And then there was Greece, and then there was Persia, and then there was Assyria, and then there was Babylon, and then there was Rome. And Jesus says, but if you come to me, welcome to my upside down kingdom. Everything that you've known before and what humans try to do, he says, my kingdom is a kingdom in which people with power, listen to me, church, please listen to me. Jesus says to us, people with power should use their power for the sake of other people. That's crazy. That'll never work. Every single one of the dynasties I just described to you is gone. And the church still stands. Jesus says, you who are powerful, you are to use your power for the sake of the powerless. That's not what culture's saying right now. Just don't know if y'all knew that or not. Paul said, you know what? We got to apply this to each and every member of our families. And that's why Ephesians 22 is one sentence that he applies specifically to wives. Because they have a responsibility just like husbands and kids and fathers. But here, this is where I want you to go with me, especially you, gentlemen. Pay attention to this. He said that in 5:22, but this is 5:21. This is the overarching principle to which we are all accountable. In Ephesians 5:21, he said, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. In other words, all of you who claim the name of Jesus, all of you who are Christ followers, if you're wondering what it looks like to apply what Jesus taught and lived in our families, let me give you a big, easy statement to keep you on track. In 5:21, he says, everybody is to submit to everybody else in the family. You might want to write this down. There's no blank. But write it down. That one verse, 5:21, is the idea of mutual submission. It is so quiet in here. Y'all look at me like you're a calf looking at a new gate. It's the truth. Everybody in the family is to submit to everyone else in the family. You go, that will never work. Don't lose me. He says, this is mutual submission, and this is how I break it down. He says, husbands, this is how you are to do it. Wives, this is how you are to do it. Kids, fathers. He does in the midst of that say, wives, submit to your husbands. That's an application for wives of how to live out this call, this command of mutual submission. Why in the world would we want to do that? He says, you do it because you revere Jesus Christ. He says, don't do it out of reverence for each other. He says, do it out of reverence for Jesus. Do you revere Jesus? He lived flawlessly, died sacrificially, rose victoriously. He is one and only. There is only one of him. Do you revere him? Then you do it out of reverence for Christ. You don't do it out of reverence for me or someone else in your family, because let's just be honest, there are days whenever none of us deserves any sort of reverence or to be revered in any way. Could I get an amen or an oh me? Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. Sometimes, guys, be honest, are there days that sometimes you do not deserve to be submitted to? Mm-hmm. But listen to me, do not lose me. This is the secret sauce. This is the life and family changing leverage. You want a leverage point to change your family? I'm giving it to you this morning. If you will allow this value and this principle to become your North Star, Jesus says, I am going to leverage my power through your life. If you will take your power, your assets, your time, and you will leverage those things for the benefit of someone else in your family. Whether I'm a husband or a wife, a kid, a parent, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, doesn't matter, grandparents especially. If we can say, I'm going to figure out a way to get my shoulder up underneath your burden, my fellow family member, if I can figure out a way to get my shoulder up underneath your burden with you for the sake of Christ, then our family is well on the way to being the kind of family that honors God. And I still say, yeah, but why would I choose to do that? Because I've been told, you got to be in charge. Got to be in charge. And I would say, back to you, why would I do it? Because that's what Jesus did for you. We would not be having this conversation if it wasn't for Jesus. He got his shoulder, he got his whole life up underneath the burden of our sin, and he leveraged all the power, all the assets, all the time, and he did it for us. And he did it because he loves us. He didn't have to do it, he did it because he wanted to do it. It just astounds me. That's when we sing, "This is amazing grace." How could the God of the universe look at me and go, "You are worth saving"? And not only are you worth saving, you are worth me giving my Spirit inside of you to guide you. Don't ever forget, my friend, that Jesus Christ put you first and died for your sins so you don't have to. So you read Paul, you read Peter, you read the Gospels, and you just get overwhelmed. These guys get so overwhelmed trying to express and explain how magnificent, how glorious His grace and sacrifice really is. And you remember, we love a story in which the hero comes through. Well, Jesus is the hero. And by the way, if you want to carry the metaphor forward into the Christian life, the call of the wild is Jesus Christ. He is calling you to a great adventure. John, whenever he says about what he saw with Jesus, he said, "I realize," this is about chapter 13 of the Gospel of John, Jesus finally came to realize the full measure of His authority in all of the world. And John says, "And I saw Him get up from that table that we were all sitting at, take off His outer garment, tie a towel around His waist, and get down on His hands and knees to wash 24 dirty feet, one pair that would go very quickly to betray Him." What would you do if you knew that all authority in heaven and earth had been given to you? I'm just saying, I'm being honest. I would not have gotten in the servant-hearted manner. I'm like, cool. I'm big. Y'all can make fun of how short I am for the rest of your life, but I am large and in charge now. Right? Jesus says, "No, I'm going to set an example for you that the more authority and power you have, the more of a servant you should be." And Paul, for families, he teaches, he says, just as Jesus submitted Himself under those under His authority, he says every family member should submit to one another, not out of reverence for each other, but reverence for Christ. Mutual submission. And you know what I've discovered over time, because I've lived with this for quite a while. When any group, it doesn't matter if it's a business, a not-for-profit, a church, a family, it doesn't matter. When any group does this, it's so powerful because it is the secret to having a great team. Anybody on a great team is saying to the other people on that team, "I'm going to loan you my influence. I'm going to loan you my power. I'm going to loan you my time. I'm going to loan you my resources." And guess what? Just imagine it. If everybody on every team actually did that for every other member of their team, all the needs get taken care of. Changes things. That's why Paul says, this is the gospel. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ lived out in 3D in your family. Submit yourselves to one another out of reverence for Christ. It is the message of mutual submission. It says, I am not here for me. I'm here for you. You. And no matter where you fall in the lineup, no matter where you are in the hierarchy or your position on the team, if you say, "I'm here for you, my time, my abilities, my resources," no one in the family is more important than anyone else because we're mutually submitted to one another and we're taking care of each other. Now, if you want to, listen to me, if you want to unleash this in your family and see great things happen, I think it comes down to just a very simple question that you can practice every single day. And that question is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 words. Think we can do it? The question that you can ask to get started in doing what Jesus asked us to do, that is, what can I do to help? That was pretty easy. Do it with me. What can I do to help? Now say it with conviction. What can I do to help? Let's do it one more time. What can I do to help? See, that's it. Some of you are going, how can I leverage who I am, what I have, what I can do for your benefit? If everybody in the family would ask that question at least once a day, and I'm giving you an assignment, would you at least try me on this one? this next week, can you put it in your reminder, your devices? Can you do this? At least once a day, remind you, I'm going to ask my family, what can I do to help? Every member of my family, I'm going to ask them, what can I do to help? Everyone on the team. I think it could actually revolutionize your life and family. It won't make everything great from the start because there are going to be some things that have to be reset and recalibrated and whatever, but I'm just telling you, this is the beginning. Because you are saying with authenticity because you mean it, not because you have to, not because the preacher made you do it. You're saying, I am legitimately offering all that I am for all that you need. It's another way of saying, I'm loaning me you. Or I'm loaning you me. I have a hard time with words. They're fun. If you could just get them to come out the right way. I'm loaning you me. Okay? What's the sentence? Yeah, some of you are with me. What can I do to help? Write it down. It makes it easier to remember. Students, listen to me. We have things that are going on for middle schoolers and high schoolers. You should be a part of it. We want to change the world one life at a time. Why don't you be a part of that? That's a side note. But students, when living with your parents, you want to make a big, deep, visible impact on your parents? This week, at least once a day, to each of your parents, or how many of you have in your life, just go to them and sincerely say the words, Mom, what can I do to help? Or go to your dad, actually go to him too. Dad, what can I do to help? Be ready to dial 911 because both of them will probably pass out in that moment. We just want to keep everybody safe. But I'm just telling you, parents, would it do your heart good if you heard from your teenager without being prompted the words, what can I do to help? Because there is a tendency, and we have to admit this, even if you are a teenager, there's a lot of don't do that. Say, what can I do to help? Be countercultural. You want to be different from everybody else? Do that. You want to really take that to 110%? Wait until your parents are around their friends and you walk in, and don't make a big drama of it, but it's like, hey, Mom, what can I do to help? And then they'll tell you, and I'm just telling you what goes on after you leave is the other parents are going to lean into your parents and go, teach us your ways. Parents, you are instructed to instruct, guide, and correct your kids, but at least once a day, is there a way that you can look your kid in the eye with all the love you can muster and as sincerely as you know how, say, son, what can I do to help? Daughter, what can I do to help? Women, this is a very powerful question to a man. And I know, because I are one, if you ask your man, hey, honey, what can I do to help? He's going to go, yeah, nothing. I'm good. I'm good. And he is going to go walk away. He's going to go, yes! Because it gives the glimpse that maybe you saw what most men are carrying around with them. They will hear that maybe you're aware of the burden that most men carry. Because we try to carry it with honor. We have responsibilities. But to hear the woman of our life say, I'm on your side, I want to be a part of the solution, I don't want to be a part of a bigger problem. Is there anything I can take off of you so that you can go further, faster with God? I'm just telling you, it's like gasoline. That's high-octane fuel, man. Man, that'd be a great time to go, Men, let's also be honest. We're scared to ask this question because in most of our homes, You would at least profess to be the leader of that home. And yet, you and I both know that's a very confusing assignment because you and I, most days, don't have a clue. Amen. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be funny. I am saying we've never been down this road before, but we're trying our best. We're supposed to be the leader and supposed to know all these things. And you don't want to tell everybody, well, I actually don't know what I'm doing. But let me tell you something, fellas, because I've been down this road. I dare you to try asking this question, especially of the woman in your life as you leave for the day, but don't leave out your kids. If you would lean in the direction of your wife, your significant other, and you were to ask them as sincerely as you know how, what can I do to help you today? Is it an errand? Is it a task? Is it a honeydew? Whatever it is. Just also realize that probably your past experience has made it a really tense situation because the moment that they open their mouth to say something to you, you bow up. Don't you know how much I've got to do? Try and hold this family together and all this stuff. Like, I'm just saying, a lot of times we're presenting a whole lot of resistance to the very people who need to be on our team. But when you voluntarily ask this question of the people who are closest to you, you are opening the door, particularly to her. She's able to understand that you are there for her, that your muscles, your time, your ability, your resources, whatever is, you're there for her. I'm just telling you. All of this and each one of our responsibilities, each one of our roles, it is a bridge, a question. What can I do to help is a bridge to mutual submission. It's that simple. Not easy. I didn't say it was easy. It's difficult, but it is simple to get there. So let's deal with the barriers and then we're done. Why are we so afraid to ask this question of other people in our life? That's easy. Because we want what we want, and we want it right now. And if I say to you, what can I do to help? Then that interrupts my schedule and the things I want to do. Because if you tell me that I have to go and... The reason that teenagers don't want to say this to their parents, what can I do to help, is most parents are going to go and they say, you need to go cut the grass. You need to go clean the bathroom. You need to, Lord knows what. And inside of us is like, but I want to go with my friends. I want to go do this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to say what can I do to help? Because really I don't want to help. And we get all over the kids for having that kind of attitude. Listen. We do it too. The reason that you and I are scared to ask is because you're afraid that somebody is going to take advantage of you. They're going to pull you off of your plan. They're going to make you do something you don't want to do. They're going to ask you to do stuff that isn't going to allow you to be first anymore. But you do remember the overarching instruction. It didn't go away while we weren't talking about it. Ephesians 5:21 says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Who is Christ? That is another word for Messiah. He is Jesus the Christ. Christ is not his last name. Jesus the Christ. He is the second person of the Trinity. He is God in the flesh who lived flawlessly, died sacrificially, and rose victoriously. Now, this is not how it happened, but from our puny brains, this is the point of view that somewhere in timeless eternity past, in some sense, Jesus saw the mess that we were in because of our sin, because of our rebellion. He turns to the Father and he says, Father, what can I do to help? And the Father says, you don't want to know. And he says, no, I'm serious. What can I do to help? And the Father, in some sense, says, well, it's going to cost you, but there is something you can do. How much is it going to cost? Cost me everything. Okay, I'll do that. Well, you're going to have to take the second chair. Okay, I can do that. You're going to have to be less than everybody in the room. Okay, I'll do that. You're going to have to stand in line behind everybody else. And Jesus says, okay, I'll do that. And then he did. Paul, so against Jesus, meets Jesus, spent time with the guys who were there with Jesus all the time. He teaches all the guys and the girls in his church. He says, look at that and revere him out of reverence for that. Do not reverence Peter, Paul, and Mary. Throw open the door to whatever it is that God has given you, your time, your influence, your power, your money, abilities, passions, smarts, whatever it is. And just like Jesus did for us, you do it for the people in your life. Yes, they will, somebody in the group will probably take advantage of you. No, you might not get done everything that's on your to-do list. You might actually come in second place. It's gonna cost you. But welcome to being a follower of Jesus Christ, because where He leads, I will follow. Jesus went first for you so that you could turn around and do the same thing for everybody else. 99.9% of the time it's not going to cost you your life like it did Jesus. But it will cost you a little bit of your time, your money, your strength, or whatever. But listen, this is the question that will give you the key to a great family. And if you refuse to do this, it's like looking for glasses that are actually on your head. Do you remember Buck that I told you about? Okay. Maybe taking the easy way isn't the easy way. Maybe culture's had it wrong. Maybe it's not about trying to be comfortable so we can be safe. It's the more you try to seek the comfort the culture gives you, you're just going to live small. Because what makes a really I'm making a point, don't lose me. You know what makes a really happy family? You could do your own research. Really happy families have chosen to say, each person says, I am willing to leverage all of me for an us. Because imagine what it would feel like if every member of your family asked this question. It's very easy. You can do it right now. What can I do to help? Do you know they'd feel the same way as you feel right now, imagining that somebody in your family says to you, what can I do to help? Church, listen to me. You know that I love you, right? Okay. Because I got to tell you something really hard. The only reason you don't ask it is because you're selfish. I say it to me too. It simply means that we're not willing to loan ourselves fully to the mix. And if we keep doing that, there will never be a really happy family come to be. You say, how do you know that? Because you'll either relate to your family by withdrawing, they'll withdraw from you, or you'll spend all your time chasing a lie. Because a lot of us, especially us guys, we are convinced that if I could just get everybody in my family to do what I want them to do, then I'm going to be happy. No, you won't. Now, you may wind up large and in charge, but you won't be happy or satisfied, because happiness doesn't come from getting other people to do what you want them to do. Happiness, especially in families, is mutual submission. It's the payoff for loaning yourself to everybody else in the family. The question is, what can I do to help? That forces us to lean in instead of leaning away. Guys, listen, some of your wives can't get in, some of your wives cannot get in because you don't lean in toward them. The only measurable movement that they see in you is they pull away. You pull away from them. So she's left with a couple of options. She either leaves or she orbits everything around you because you're so important. And so she tries to keep leaning in, and she keeps trying to keep leaning in. Your kids keep trying to lean in, and everybody's trying to make you happy, and you're not happy because that's not the way happiness works. You don't get happy by controlling other people. You get happy when you loan yourself to other people because you weren't made for you. You were made for someone else. And you do it just like Jesus did. The key to a happy family is mutual submission as shown to us by Jesus himself. Now, some of you are going, yeah, but does that mean there's nobody in the family that has ultimate authority? Is there nobody who's going to make the decisions? Because the way I'm seeing it, preacher, is if we do it that way, then we're going to be stuck at the entrance to city market. It's like, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. It's a good question. Doesn't somebody have to be in charge? Great question. It is a great question, but the question I'm trying to get you to pay attention to is, what can I do to help? That question has nothing to do with authority structures. It has nothing to do with authority. It has everything to do with what we do with whatever authority we may have. It doesn't have anything to do with the decision-making process. I've known enough families, including my own, that sometimes decisions are made in such strange ways, and yet it works. Because it's not illegal, immoral, against God's word, or don't worry about the fattening, it doesn't matter. Okay. But it has everything to do with how you approach the decision-making process. Dad, I believe God has ordained you to be the head of your home. And I would say, be the head of the home, like Jesus. How did he become the head of the church? He gave himself away for everyone in the church. He's the model. He's the standard. I've never heard, in all my life, I've never heard, Jesus can't be the head of the church. He gave his life away. The very reason he can be and is the head of the church is because he gave his life away. So listen to me, gentlemen. I'm just telling you the truth so that you can come to terms with it. You don't have to keep reminding your wife and kids that you're in charge. Because technically, if you have to keep telling them that you are, you're not. But be the point leader. Give your life away. Give away the power of being the point leader for the sake of your wife and kids because you revere Jesus Christ. As a Christ follower, it's not about being the king. He's the king. It's about being a servant of the king, just like Jesus was. Because he said, the more power you have, the better servant you should be. So if you want to man up, just ask this question. What can I do to help? In fact, I just dare you, drive them crazy with it this week. No, seriously, what can I do to help? Like, okay. No, what can I do to help? Seriously, Dad? No, I'm serious. What can I do to help? Change the temperature and the direction of your family with one simple question. Now, if you're not a Christ follower yet, try this at home. You'll make your family better. If you are a Christ follower, like I said, you don't have any other choice. But then again, why would we want any other choice? This is the basis of it. Romans 5:6. For while we were still helpless, in other words, while we needed help, that's when it happened. At just the right time. In other words, in the nick of time. You realize that just when you needed it, God didn't go, oh man, I am so busy. I'll try and get to that. Oh, sorry, I ran out of time. Bummer about you dying in your sin. No. When we were most needy, it says, while we were still helpless, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. If you and I are going to help one another, the time to do it is never going to be ideal. But church, if we do this, why don't we let this be the hallmark of our families? That we live like real and ideal. We live in the middle with Jesus. Your real family is never going to have smooth sailing. It doesn't work that way. But don't compromise on shooting for the ideal of loving like Jesus did. And by the way, whenever he talks about the ungodly, he's talking about you and me. Because we do our own thing that makes us into a little g God, and he said that's not the way it goes. The next verse says this, for one will hardly die for a righteous man, though perhaps for the good man someone would dare even to die. But God demonstrates, not just talks about, demonstrates something. He moves, he acts, he demonstrates. God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Wow. He leaned in our direction and said, what can we do to help? That's the gospel in our families. Do you hear what? See, he's saying, wives, ladies, talking to you as equals. You got your own agency. Revere Christ by choosing to submit to your husband. Husband, be like Christ. Leverage all of your strength for the sake of your family. Children, just like Jesus submitted himself to the Father, willingly learn to obey your parents. Fathers, do not exasperate your kids. Loan them your strength. What does it look like? Here, fill in the blank. Quick test. What's the big idea? Mutual submission. I've laid it out to you in about 7 ways. Mutual submission. What is the activating question? Say it with me. What can I do to help? I'm just saying, even if you don't mean it, try it. I dare you. Oh, one more thing. There's another fill in the blank. Okay? Because I can't let you go. I haven't beat you up enough. Okay, one more thing. When you want to ask it least, you need to ask it most. Get it? Good. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, this cuts really close to the bone. But because it is eternal wisdom, help us to see it that way. Give us strength to practice asking this question. May the response to it revolutionize our lives and families. And then give us the strength and the courage to actually do what we've heard here today. Lord, thank you for giving people the ability to write songs that capture this. And the one we're about to sing, I love it so much. You put your love on the line. Help us to do the same, just like you did. And I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.